Official statement: Song Hye-kyo's agency confirms secret marriage to Lee Min-ho. Fans stunned by the unexpected revelation. How did two of Korea's biggest stars manage to keep such a life-changing secret from the world? What really happened behind the scenes? Let Red Carpet Revealed take you inside the shocking truth. Join us and discover it all right now. It started like an ordinary morning in Seoul: gray skies, the streets buzzing with commuters, coffee shops serving the first wave of office workers. And then, as if the clouds themselves split open, the notification hit millions of phones at once. We confirm that Song Hye-kyo and Lee Min-ho are legally married. Please respect their privacy and support their personal lives. That single line from Song Hye-kyo's agency shattered the fragile calm of an entire nation. Two of Korea's most celebrated and scrutinized stars, secretly married? The internet nearly broke in half. Hashtags began trending instantly. #Song Hye-kyo Lee Min-ho, #secret wedding, #drama in real life. Fans cried, laughed, and gasped. News anchors scrambled to adjust their scripts. Journalists dropped their coffee cups and sprinted to their desks. But how had this happened? How had two of the most watched people in Asia, perhaps in the world, pulled off something so monumental, so impossible to conceal? Rumors had been bubbling for months, if not years. Pied fans had pointed out curious coincidences: a glimpse of matching rings on separate occasions, identical captions posted minutes apart from different cities, a fleeting, almost imperceptible glance exchanged at an award show that made fans hold their breath. But then again, in the world of Korean entertainment, fans see what they want to see, don't they? One staffer from an awards show last year recalled how Song Hye-kyo and Lee Min-ho shared a quiet moment in a backstage corridor, just out of sight. They didn't say much, the staffer whispered later to a reporter, but you could feel something, like they were speaking without words. Still, nothing concrete emerged. Paparazzi failed to catch them together. Their agencies fiercely denied any speculation, calling it baseless gossip, and yet here they were, married all along. The announcement was a masterstroke of timing and control. Released at dawn, just as morning news cycles were beginning, it gave the media no chance to prepare, no opportunity to shape the narrative. Fans barely had time to register before the statement was being read on live television, broadcast into millions of homes. Some fans cried tears of joy. Others felt betrayed. One wrote on Twitter, "We've been supporting her through everything. She could have trusted us with this." Another posted simply, "Congratulations, my queen. Finally, you're happy." And then there were those who couldn't believe it at all, insisting it was a publicity stunt, a prank, or some elaborate marketing scheme. But as more details began to surface, it became clear, this was real. The first to leak was the wedding date, 6 months earlier. Quiet afternoon in Florence, Italy. According to an Italian wedding planner, they booked under false names but left behind telltale details: a request for Korean cuisine, handwritten vows, and 2 name tags that somehow found their way into the planner's Instagram story before being quickly deleted. Next came the guest list: close family only, no industry insiders. A photographer who claimed to have been hired for the event described a surreal, almost cinematic scene. "It was raining lightly," he said. He wore a simple white gown with no jewels, no veil. He wore a dark suit. They looked at each other like nobody else existed. And then came the photos, blurry at first, as though taken by a fan through a long lens. But then sharper, clearer, Lee Min-ho holding her hand as they walked along the Arna River, Song Hye-kyo leaning into his chest as they waited at a tiny cafe. Fans dissected every frame, every gesture, noticed how he carried her shawl, how she adjusted his tie. They even noticed that she seemed to cry during the ceremony, and he kissed her forehead gently, whispering something no one could hear. The secrecy. Why the lies? Speculation ran wild. Some claimed it was pressure from their agencies, which preferred to market them as single and available. Others believed it was fear, of the press, of public judgment, of the suffocating scrutiny that comes with fame. One former stylist, speaking anonymously, claimed, "They've been in love for years, but they're terrified of what this industry does to couples. They wanted to protect what they had." The world watched in fascination as this drama, better than any they'd acted in, played out in real time. Headlines screamed, Fans wept. Critics pontificated. But this was only the beginning, because behind the smiles, behind the carefully worded statements and blurry photos, lay a story even deeper, even more heartbreaking than anyone could imagine. As the dust from the announcement began to settle, the real story started to emerge, piece by piece, like shards of glass reflecting a fractured truth. Those closest to them revealed that their love story had not been a whirlwind romance but a quiet, patient journey. They met nearly 5 years ago on the set of a commercial shoot, a seemingly innocuous pairing that planted the first seeds of something more. At first, they were just friendly, exchanging polite words between takes, smiling for cameras. And came long conversations during lunch breaks, shared inside jokes, late-night texts that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. According to a crew member from the shoot, they were inseparable by the final day. They thought no one noticed, the crew member said. But everyone could see it. The way he looked at her. Like she was the only person in the room. But then came the hard part, hiding it. For years they mastered the art of concealment. Separate cars, separate entrances, messages on social media. A hotel concierge in Tokyo remembered them checking in an hour apart, pretending to be strangers, but requesting adjoining rooms. Why all the secrecy? One insider said bluntly, because the public ruins everything. Look at what happened to others. Scandal after scandal. They didn't want that. But it took its toll. There were times when they almost walked away, when the weight of the charade became too much. Song Hye-kyo reportedly once told a friend, "It feels like we're living half a life." Even their family struggled to understand. At one point, Lee Min-it's host's mother is said to have confronted him, asking, "Why do you have to hide the person you love?" His only answer was, "Because I want to keep her." And so they held on, through rumors, denials, endless speculation, through sleepless nights and stolen moments. They finally decided to marry. It was not a grand gesture but a quiet rebellion, a way of reclaiming their own story. The ceremony in Florence was intimate, stripped of all the pomp and spectacle expected of stars their caliber. There were no drones, no press, no social media. Just them, their families, and a few trusted friends. Yet, even then, they knew it couldn't last forever. The morning of the announcement, reportedly held hands in their apartment, reading the statement one last time before it was sent to the press. He kissed her knuckles and said, "Ready?" She nodded. When the news broke, the world reacted exactly as they'd feared, and hoped. Fans flooded social media. Posted old photos of her in wedding dresses from dramas, writing, "Our queen finally gets her happy ending." Others shared clips of his romantic scenes, captioning them, "This wasn't acting after all." But not everyone was happy. Some fans accused them of betrayal, of lying, manipulating their images for years. One angry fan tweeted, "We deserve the truth. Not this circus." The industry was equally shaken. Brands scrambled to assess contracts, worried that the revelation might alienate fans. Directors worried about box office returns. Even fellow celebrities seemed caught off guard, some offering public congratulations, others choosing silence. Through it all, they remained united. 2 nights after the announcement, they were spotted walking quietly through a park near their home. No disguises, no handlers. Just 2 people, finally allowed to exist in the open. When asked by a reporter if they had anything to say, Lee Min-it's ho simply smiled and said, "She's worth it." For Song Hye-kyo, it was a rare moment of vulnerability when she posted on Instagram later that evening, "We lived in the shadows so we could step into the light. Thank you for understanding." And perhaps that's what made their story resonate so deeply. Not just the glamour of 2 superstars but the raw humanity of their struggle. Because beneath the surface of fame and fortune were 2 people who simply wanted to love each other without fear. Fans continued to debate, speculate, to celebrate. But for them, the world outside had finally quieted enough to hear their own hearts beating. They were no longer acting, no longer pretending, just living. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest role of their lives.